Minister, thanks very much for joining us at Asia House. Where does Asia fit in your list of priorities in terms of trade deals going forward?
Well, Asia is an incredibly important set of markets for the UK. I think it's the European Commission themselves, ironically, who've said that 90% of the world's growth before the year 2030 will come from outside of Europe. Asia, with its growing population, its growing markets, increasing middle-class population, will be a vital place for us to market UK goods and services into. But also it's increasingly a source of inward investment into the UK as well, from China, Japan, India, Korea in particular.
What countries specifically are you going to be looking at? What are the priority countries?
I'd say the priority countries are both the obvious and perhaps the slightly less obvious. I think the obvious ones are China, Japan, India, which are big priorities really across the board, both for inward investment, for outward investment as well, for exports and also for future of trade policy and trade agreements and so on. But also South Korea is incredibly important. In fact, South Korea has seen incredible growth in UK exports and trade more generally with South Korea over the last 5 or 6 years. Other important markets are some of the Central Asian markets. I was in Kazakhstan just a few weeks ago. Again, the UK is a big player in some of those markets, and also amongst some of our traditional Commonwealth friends, like, for example, Malaysia, Singapore, important markets, some developing world markets as well. Pakistan, Bangladesh, if I were to pick out two, also will be important for us. And some non-Commonwealth markets, I'd say the Secretary of State has been in Vietnam and the Philippines. So there's some really, really important markets for us overall in Asia. It shouldn't be seen as just China, India and Japan. There's some other really big markets as well.
Minister, it's a new department, only 12 months old. There are clearly going to be bandwidth constraints. How are you going to prioritise these Asian countries?
Well, we're putting in place Her Majesty's Trade Commissioners, which will be our 9 regional trade commissioners across the world as we go forward. That'll be the main area that we'll be looking to drive through our trading relationship with Asia. They'll be covering not just inward investment, exports, but also the whole trade policy side. In terms of trade policy, we've greatly increased the capacity and capability of the department. Of those working on trade policy has gone from the inception of the department in the last summer 2016 of around 50 people to around 250 to 300 people today, so increasing that capacity, that capability. And also working with some of our key posts. We're making sure that our really important posts are highly involved on the trade side, which, to be fair, they have been for a long time.
Earlier you mentioned South Korea. Now the EU has a trade agreement, a free trade agreement with South Korea, which is possibly why trade has accelerated. One of the ambitions of the government has been to roll over these EU FTAs to UK FTAs on the stroke of midnight at Brexit. Is that still your ambition?
It's very much our objective to roll over as many of those EU free trade agreements as reasonably possible. So there is no cliff edge for business. You're right that the South Korea agreement has been particularly successful. My colleague Mark Garnier is in South Korea at the moment. I was there last year. Lord Price on the trade policy side was there last year as well. It's been a particularly successful free trade agreement. So we would like to see the UK continuing to have those trade access capabilities within that FTA rolled over so we can keep boosting that all-important UK-South Korea bilateral trade.
The department's now a year old. What has it achieved in its first 12 months?
Well, trade is now back right at the centre of UK government policy making. In fact, for the previous 10 years, the word trade had disappeared entirely from the name of any UK government department. It's incredible that trade had totally dropped off the agenda. Trade is now right back at the heart of government. The department, under the very capable leadership of Liam Fox, the rest of the team, myself, Mark Garnier and Lord Price, have made sure that we've got trade into every part of the UK government. There's a whole of government effort in boosting our exports. We still need to be doing more, making sure we speak with one voice when it comes to inward investment coming into the country and preparing the UK for the future, a free trading future after Brexit in terms of trade policy and key free trade agreements.
Trade was never previously mainstream news. It's now centre of the political debate. Does that put you under pressure to do deals?
Well, it's an incredibly exciting department, an incredibly exciting time to be doing trade, because we also need to be out there. I mean, we need to be thinking, obviously, well beyond just the UK. We need to be making the case for free trade generally. The Prime Minister has said she wants the UK to be the most compelling and passionate advocate of free trade anywhere in the world. And that means that is the job of our department, and also the whole of government, but particularly our department, in making the case for free trade, to showing to people that free trade increases prosperity, increases jobs, increases investment, and particularly free trade with Asia is going to be incredibly important for us, for the UK's future. That is where a lot of the growth will come in the next 20 to 30 years, and that's why it's vital for the UK to be engaging in Asia.
This pressure, does it mean that the UK is at risk of not doing optimum deals? And I'm speaking specifically here about the US, which is likely to be a very tough negotiation.
Well, of course, trade deals are always about negotiations, but we start from the point the UK is the world's fifth largest economy. We are a very significant market, a very significant economy, a growing economy. Our growth in recent years has been some of the best in the G7. So I think we start from those talks from a position of strength. And people want to access our markets, we want to access their markets. We need to make sure that we win the argument for free trade at the same time. So we need, of course, to be showing people the benefits that free trade brings. And that's also part of our political agenda domestically as well, is showing people, telling people what the benefits are of free trade to their daily lives in terms of creating jobs, bringing investment into the country. I've been a great privilege for me. My work isn't just being abroad, but also in promoting investment that's coming into the country. Just two projects recently, like I mentioned, in London, the Royal Albert Docks, which of course we did with Asia House, yes. And KDDI and their big investment in the new data center in the East End as well. Those are big examples. We have to be out there telling people these are helping to create jobs in the UK, helping to increase UK prosperity through foreign investment.
Finally, because of the political numbers in the UK, it may be difficult to travel. Will that be a constraint in terms of doing trade deals with Asia?
Well, I think we'll have to take the advantage of the opportunities that we have. I mean, I mentioned that Mark Garnier is in South Korea at the moment. I've been in, just in the last year, I've been in China, I've been in Korea, I've been in Malaysia. I was with the Prime Minister and the Secretary of State in India last November. A few weeks ago in Kazakhstan, I was in Taiwan. So Asia is very much a focus of our visits. The Secretary of State has been in Japan, he's been in India, he's been in Vietnam, he's been in the Philippines. So we are covering a lot of territory and making sure that the ministerial visit, part of getting the trade agenda out there, is incredibly important and making sure that we deliver.
Greg Hands, thank you very much.
Thank you, Michael.